Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, milakakihi, warida nafsihi, wazinata arshi, wa midada kalimati. My work is going to be very easy because I'm going to be looking at what scholars have done in a little while, the last 5-10 years on this topic. I only have 2 slides, amazingly. All right. The first one, I'll be looking at what I call applied genealogy of the Makassid, right? What does that mean, really? What's the concern of Islamic scholars, or what are the concerns of Islamic scholars when it comes to digital currencies? I'm, however, going to subject it to several rules, because Islamic finance, or Islam as a religion, is based on rules. What are the rules? Does digital currency fit into the rules? If not, why? Or how many rules have digital currencies fit into? Now, everything I'll be talking about in my 2 slides will be about the opinion of Sharia scholars. Opinion of Sharia scholars. I'm going to start very quickly. I won't define terms anymore. It's been done. I'll start very quickly with the Makassid, which is the primary purpose of Sharia, of Islam. Again, I'm not going to go through every aspect of the Makassid. There are 5 major aspects of it. I'm going to concentrate on the protection of wealth. The protection of wealth. Other aspects include enriching posterity, faith, intellect, and the human self itself, right? But I'm not going to go there for now. I'll go into protection of wealth, right? In a bit to talk about the protection of wealth, it then makes it very important for me to go back to the foundations of Islamic finance, of this wealth. How do we protect wealth? Now, Brother Hakim talked about the classical definition of money. So again, allow me to start with the definition of money. Because, until the mid-70s, Islamic scholars tried to define even interest, riba. And they tried to wonder, why is riba not acceptable? Before the mid-70s, scholars had argued in favor of, additions on capital itself. Okay, when you have some addition on capital, if it's not too much, it's allowed. However, by the mid-70s thereabouts, scholars globally, Sharia scholars, agreed that any addition on money itself is interest, is riba. They came up with a definitive, solution to the aspect of money. Now, the other part is, what are the things that are prohibited in Islam when it comes to, the protection of wealth? Number 1, prohibition of interest, riba. Interest is not allowed. Again, I've defined interest to say any addition on money itself. Money itself. I give you 1 billion naira. A condition for that 1 billion naira is just 1 naira. That 1 naira is interest because it's a condition for the 1 billion naira. So it's not allowed. Prohibition of gambling. What our Sharia scholars will call misr. Gambling it doesn't have to be regular gambling. Anything, any transaction that has features of gambling is not allowed. What do I mean by that? When you put down some money, another person put down some money, somebody gets everything, somebody loses everything. That's gambling. And you can understand why conventional insurance, derivatives markets, to a very large extent, the futures markets are not allowed. Gambling. Because they have features of gambling, right? Again, I'm not going to start with digital money yet. I'm going to get there as we go on. The other part is prohibition of uncertainty, garar. Scholars have argued, what is uncertainty? There's risk in every business. We're talking about extreme risk. Uncertainties. Excessive uncertainties, right? In business, you can argue that even real estate, can be uncertain. I was speaking with a developer a few days ago that done a transaction, they sold houses before the COVID lockdown, And the others now, they need to put in more money. The subscribers need to put in more money. So that's uncertain, right? However, scholars are saying extreme uncertainties. There are prohibited in Islam. So futures markets, the futures market, you buy short, you buy what you don't have, is not allowed. Many years ago, I was looking at the works of Aristotle, and amazingly, I find some similarities with a lot of things the prophet said, about selling short, not buying what you don't have, right? Right. Aristotle 500 years before the time of Moses, spoke about that. You don't have it and you're buying it, not allowed. Features. And so when you had the subprime mortgage problem some 10, 12 years ago, you found out that Islamic financial institutions were highly affected because they were not allowed to deal in features. They were not allowed to deal in such derivatives. They cannot do sale of debt. You cannot sell debt. You cannot sell what you don't have, right? So sale of debt, not allowed, right? Even if I create a Sharia compliant transaction using, say, a markup sale or Komraba, I've created the transaction. Then there are expectations in terms of receivables, money I'm expecting. I cannot securitize money that I'm expecting in a sale transaction. So many rules, right? So sale of debt is not allowed. Dealing in receivables, securitizing receivables is also very much frowned out. Now, prohibition of unethical concerns. What is unethical concern? Or what are unethical concerns? Anything that Sharia scholars say is not allowed. They're not allowed. So the Sharia scholars say, hey, this transaction, the way it's been structured, or the process is not allowed. They're not allowed, right? There's a lot of Salam, the prophets. There was a case around grapes. People were arguing. Can't we buy grapes anymore? And the prophet made it very clear. If you sell grapes to the person or the manufacturer of alcohol, then it's not allowed. But if you sell grapes to anybody that wants to eat it, then it's fine. Sorghum in Nigeria, people have argued, but they use it for alcohol making. Sharia scholars have made it clear. There's nothing wrong with sorghum, but if you put it as part of the process to come up with alcoholic products, then it's not allowed. But sorghum itself is not a problem. The same thing with corn. So Sharia scholars can say this process is not allowed, and so it's not allowed. Even real estate, right? There are certain transactions in real estate. Everybody thinks real estate is fine, but there are certain transactions that Sharia scholars can say, hey, that process is not fine. So a very important aspect of Islamic finance is process or processes. Now, let me now go back to the definition of money. For some of us, the bulk of our research was to define money, some 12 years ago, right? So what is money in Islamic finance? Let's look at the classical definition of money. Again, there was a time, even from the time of Aristotle, Christ, the prophets of Salam, great scholars, Adam Smith, money was gold or silver with intrinsic value. By intrinsic value, I mean real value, right? So money was gold or silver. So when money was gold or silver, because it had its own real value, right? It was, at that time, a medium of exchange, a measure of deferred value, a store of deferred value, and a unit of accounts or means of payments. Because money had its own real value, intrinsic, backed by gold or backed by silver. Amazingly, Aristotle said the same thing. Amazingly, in time of Christ, time of the prophet, and in fact, into the 20th century. Now, the president of the US, Nixon, in 1971, made it clear that, hey, let's produce paper money because there's confidence in paper money. Let's take away the gold value. Let's delink it from gold. Let's take it away. Let's take it away. And so all international transactions were delinked from gold. So gold was no longer, so money was no longer backed by gold, right? So the gold standard was displaced to a very large extent. And so you had paper money. And so Sharia scholars met again to argue that, hey, this paper money we're using, does it make sense? It's no longer backed by gold or silver. And so there's a problem. So the next argument was that, okay, no problem. If globally, in different countries, they accept this piece of paper, as a means of exchange, then so be it. So if scholars globally or in different jurisdictions, different countries say, we are accepting this pen as a means of exchange, no problem. We are accepting this phone as a means of exchange, not a problem. So if you accept pieces of paper printed as a means of exchange, of course, there's no problem. So Sharia scholars agreed that money can be a medium of exchange, even though in 1971, President Nixon linked it from gold, right? Other scholars argued that can money then be a measure of deferred value? Can money still be, that's the paper money, can it still be a store of value? Can it still be a means of payments? A few years ago in Zimbabwe, they had a serious economic crisis. And I remember I reviewed the PhD thesis. The acceptable means of money at that time? If you're traveling from one village to the other, or from a village to Harare, you pay with chicken or goat. That became, the acceptable form of money because, the money was worth too little at that time. So they accepted the use of goats and chicken as fair for transportation. And in fact, they also allowed the use of other, objects, other things, plants, as a means of exchange. So scholars have agreed that any acceptable form, right, acceptable in different jurisdictions and backed by the law of the land is acceptable. Allah. I take it again. Any acceptable form, cowries, paper, whatever. No more intrinsic value. Gold has been dropped. However, regulatory-wise, it is backed, it is supported. No problem, as a means of exchange, not a problem. The next argument is a measure of deferred value. Can money under Islamic finance, paper money, we're going to go to digital money. Can paper money be a measure of deferred value? Two opinions, two schools of thought. Some scholars have said, hey, why not? Why not? So medium of exchange, everybody is fine with it. A measure of deferred value, there are two schools of thought, right? Deferred value doesn't really mean anything. I remember that, when General Buhari became the head of states, in the 80s, right? Some of us were still quite young, and a lot of people had money in their homes. They changed the currency overnight, and the money was useless. People couldn't spend money anymore because the currency was changed, So the argument is, can money then still be a measure of deferred value or a store of value for that matter? So if you had a lot of money in your house at that time, you couldn't spend it, right? So we had some of our, a lot of people then, they had so much money at home, they couldn't change it. There's a maximum amount you could change at that time, right? So can money be a store of value? All the time, paper money. So Sharia scholars, if you look at the red part, Sharia scholars kind of agreed that paper money cannot be a store of value and cannot be a means of payments. Again, I'm going to go to digital currency very shortly. Let me now go to another part, which is under Islamic finance or the Islamic economic model. Transactions, money will be backed by something. Again, gold has dropped, and so scholars agreed medium of exchange, not a problem. Now, if money is not backed by gold anymore, can it be backed by any other thing? Say houses, oil and gas, equipment, vehicles, computers, phones. They agreed that in lieu of gold, let transactions be asset-backed. That is, commodity-backed. Asset, real assets, cocoa-backed, doesn't matter. Now, on the one hand, on the other hand, if it's not asset-backed, Can it be asset-based? Yes, a lot of scholars agree. Some scholars have said, don't even worry about that. As long as it's asset-backed, forget about the issue around asset-based. So for those who used to cook, some will argue it should be asset-backed or asset-based. A lot of scholarly opinion has gone there. And the argument is, let's just keep it simple, as long as it's asset-backed. Others have argued, how about if it's service-based, right? There's a service, I want to go for Hajj, I want to travel, I want to pay for rent, can that be a medium? Can it be backed by such services, right? More recently, Islamic scholars have argued, they try to confirm or redefine, ijara, service ijara, that's lease, Islamic lease, right? That how can we then make it, how can we have service ijara contracts, right? Apart from regular ijara, regular lease or forward lease, how can we have service lease, right? Again, that argument is ongoing. Now, I go to based on innovation, right? Can you innovate money? Can you innovate money, right? Again, the rule is, yes, you could innovate. Again, if it's backed by the rules of Sharia to a very large extent, and if the government supports it. I go to the next one, Sharia governance. Now, like I mentioned earlier on, in Islamic finance, the Sharia scholar says this cap I'm wearing, for whatever reason, is no more Sharia compliant. There is no Sharia compliant. And so there's Sharia governance all the time, not just for the product itself, but for the processes. And anywhere there are shades of gray here and there, Sharia scholars will have to sit back. However, Sharia scholars also disagree. Again, when I go to the next slide, I'll start to explain the concept around mal, properties or wealth. In the next slide, just two slides I have, but I'll get there very shortly. The other part is, as this activity, the use of money, as it improved the economy, the real economy. Again, I call this applied genealogy of the Maqasid, right? Maqasid seeks to achieve two broad things: human well-being and communal good life. So whatever transaction you're doing, as it reduce poverty, as it reduce unemployment, as it reduce income inequality, as it increase productive activities, right? In 1985, Nigeria had a better GDP than China, right? And then now China is ahead of everybody, right? So whatever activity that we have, as it increase production, right? Even Islamic finance, whatever money is going to do, whatever form money takes its shape, as that money, as it improved business activities, real economy, as Islamic finance, as a unique form of finance, are the transaction just Sharia compliant, or have they also touched lives, right? Have they really impacted the economy? We've done a lot of studies, looking at, poverty and inequalities and, infrastructure, and we're yet to see that strong effect. However, maybe it's happening gradually, right? So is it just about being Sharia compliant, which is fine? Or is it about being Sharia compliant on the one hand, and on the other hand, it touches life, the real economy? Now, as money meets this condition, now let me go to features. I think I talked about that briefly the other time. Features, derivatives, not allowed. Intrinsic value, does money have real value, its own real value? Does it? If it doesn't, there's a problem. Fiat money, is it fiat money or is it real money, right? And is there a sale of money, of currency, sale of money on currency itself? Now, let me quickly subject this to cryptocurrency, or if you like, digital currency. So let's go back to all of this. The first and foremost, is digital currency a medium of exchange? Yes. So Sharia scholars have argued, yes, everybody agrees. Like I mentioned earlier on, pen, phone, paper, whatever, goat, chicken, means of exchange. On the one hand. On the other hand, is it acceptable by the jurisdiction right? So Egypt, Turkey, Palestine, they said, no, 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 we're not doing this. It's not acceptable. Sharia scholars have said, no, no, no. The last time I checked. So because Sharia scholars have said it's not acceptable, it's not acceptable, right? In some other countries, Sharia scholars have said, hey, 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 come. It looks like, it's fine. Again, I'm going to go to the aspect of mal very shortly. And then they say, oh, because it's fine, not a problem, it looks fine, but they're not sure. We're not sure yet. They say they're not sure. But does it meet the condition of medium exchange? Fine. Is it a measure of deferred value? Right? You can have value in it. However, you can have value in it, not a problem. Is it a store of value? Oh, yes, it's a store of value. You can use to buy a lot of things. Is it a unit or a means of payment? Yeah, people are using to make payments. Brother Abdul Hakim talked about all of the innovations around this, and I can use it for payment. So, from the classical definition, it means that digital money fits in. However, let's subject it to other tests, right? Does it have elements of interest in it? Elements of interest. Can you make money from money itself? So if you make money from money itself, it is riba. It's not allowed. Again, I'm not concluding. I'm throwing out questions. I'm throwing out, just like Sharia scholars do all the time. A lot of writings I've seen, Sharia scholars are throwing questions. So I'm subjecting digital currency to this test, to this Islamic model. Like the Prophet said, I mentioned earlier on, grapes. Are you going to buy it and eat it in your house? Or are you going to use it to make alcohol? Right? So grapes are fine, grapes are not fine. You know what I mean? So again, are you earning money on money without any other transaction involved? So if you're earning money on money, it's not allowed. Every scholar they've agreed, all the scholars globally, Islamic scholars, they've agreed that you cannot earn money on money itself, whether it comes in the form of the stock market or it comes in the form of dividends, from prohibited transactions, or it comes in the form of bonds or T-bills or whatever it is interest. Last time I checked their bits, I realized that interest is always top 3 sins. Stronger than most of the other sins that we think are big. Stronger than them in all ramifications. So apart from associating partners with Allah, killing people unjustly, riba most of the time takes number 3 position. So you can understand how heavy it is in Islam. Riba. It looks so simple. Interest. Money on money. So for digital currency, whatever money you're making, is your money itself? Yes, appreciation. It appreciates. Again, the question then becomes, if I have £1, £100, £1,000 or dollars, and I keep it, and it then appreciates with time. I mean, I've not done anything that's appreciated because for whatever reason, the Naira refused to appreciate. And so because of that, my pound or my dollar has appreciated, right? So it has appreciated. So the question by some Sharia scholars now is Bitcoin, is digital money, is it appreciating because there's money on money itself or just appreciation? Then what is the basis of the appreciation? If it appreciates on its own, is it subjected to uncertainty? Garar. Almost every scholar accepted that yes, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, digital money, whatever you call it. Again, I'm going to go to my next slide. I'm going to be touching on blockchain very briefly, right? Just 2 slides. Now, the argument then is it uncertain? Extreme uncertainty. Garar. Scholars agreed that there's uncertainty because you can lose your money. Again, let's not go back to the Makosid. Protection of wealth. Does it protect wealth? No, it doesn't, because it's volatile. In the same vein, some scholars have argued that even when you buy Sharia compliant stock, also volatile, because they can go up and down. And so because they are volatile, so even when Makosid talks about protection of wealth, the argument then is that but wealth can also be affected, can be unprotected when you buy stock. So you can see the argument, right? So again, let me put that in the parking lot for now. Let's go to prohibition of unethical concerns. What have you traded with Bitcoin? Does it affect the economy? Has it increased unemployment? Dr. Banire mentioned earlier today that yes, people are getting jobs, people are getting busy, so there can be an argument that yes, there's employment, informal employment, right? Then the next question is, okay, is this still prohibited, right? Now, again, in some jurisdictions, Sharia scholars have said, hey, there's nothing wrong. So it's fine in those jurisdictions. The regulators have said, oh, there's nothing wrong, we can manage it, then it's fine. In other jurisdictions, Sharia scholars have said, hey, there's a problem. So there's a problem. Regulators have said, hey, we can't use it now. We're not ready for it now. We want to study it further. Then that is it. The law of the land, right? Again, gambling. Is digital money, can it pass the Messier tests? The test around prohibition of gambling, right? At the back of our mind, we know that it's going to fail that test because, it's a form of gambling, right? It's just a form of gambling, right? Scholars have also argued to say, do we need to define gambling even further, right? By saying, what constitutes gambling? If I do some kind of transactions, I put in money, I buy a parcel of land, I build, somebody comes and says, I'm the owner of the land, does that amount to gambling? Other scholars have said, no, that's not amount to gambling. Gambling is you put down money, the other guy puts down money, somebody wins it all, somebody loses everything. That's gambling. So again, I'm throwing the question open rather than concluding, because I've not been able to see writings that concludes, right, on this issue, right? To say, okay, but does cryptocurrency or does digital money, does it amount to gambling? If it's yes, then it's not allowed. If it's no, then it's fine. Now, because of time, I'll move to the next slide. I'll probably come back to this slide when need be. Now, scholars have argued around which is allowed. More importantly, they've argued around the concept of what we call mal, beitul mal. Mal means property, assets. Something that has value, mal, right? Now, one of the toughest arguments is around, should mal be tangible or non-tangible? Should it be real? Mal, my property, my phone. I can see it, everybody can see it, right? Should mal be tangible, my house? Some scholars have said, no. Even way back in days of Al-Ghazali, 1111, that 1111, right? There are arguments around mal. What is mal? The four rightly guided the imams, the four rightly guided imams. They talked about mal, different schools of thought, argument around mal. What is mal? What is property, to me? Now, some have argued that it has to be tangible, it has to be real, you feel it, you see it. Others have argued that no, you don't have to say it. You can have property in form of goodwill, other assets. So if money is real, you can feel money and see it, it amounts to mal, it's an asset, it's property. If you can't see it, it can also amount to mal, that, you can't see it, it's not tangible, but because it has some kind of value, it amounts to mal. And so again, that difference of opinion is still there till today, till this very moment. Some scholars have said tangible, untangible assets, they are fine. So in that case, if digital money fits into money, right, as a form of non-tangible mal, then it is allowed. The other question now, two others. It will be desirable for human beings on the one hand, or is it capable of being stored for the time of necessity? Other scholars have come up with these arguments that whatever form of money we have, do people like it? Are people fine with it? Before the British came, we had cowries that we're using in this part of the world. Is everybody fine with cowries? If everybody is fine with cowries, if the kings, the monarchs at that time says cowries is a means of exchange, and not a problem. So if they're fine with cowries, no problem. Is it desirable for human beings? That's the argument of some scholars. If it's desirable, then not a problem. Can it be stored for time of necessities? Yes, digital money can be stored. Again, that then takes me back to my initial questions around, does it meet these red parts? These red parts are very key. Prohibition of interest, uncertainty, unethical concerns, and gambling. Does it meet that condition? If it doesn't meet that condition, Some scholars will argue that all of these are of no effect. So again, other scholars have argued in favor of natural currencies and customary currencies. Natural currencies are basically your gold and your silver. That's what we had always known in the beginning. All the Nixon pronouncement in 1971, right? Customer currencies are your regular money, paper money, fiat money, which came up, thereafter, right? But everybody accepted it at some point. Okay, paper. Now we're not saying that this money is digital. Now the argument then is, can we make digital money to meet the conditions of Sharia? Some scholars they made it very simple. How can we, just like we have made transactions to be Sharia compliant, right? You want to buy a phone, do I give you a loan of 400,000 naira to buy a Samsung phone, right? And then, I charge you interest, or do I buy that phone first from Samsung and sell it to you at the markup price? Markup price agreed, fixed, cast in stone, cannot be changed. So the question is, how can we then make, and that is subject of research and of course implementation, right? Yes, how can we then make? Yes. How can we then make? Yeah, my time is running out. Okay, I'll try and round up. How can we subject digital currencies, right, to the main conditions of Islamic economy, right? How can we make it protect wealth? Looking at the Maqasid, right? How can it protect our wealth? How can we define it within the realm of being a medium of exchange, and to a very large extent, sometimes a measure of deferred value, right? These are the questions, right? So again, I'm not going to go into definitions, which is allowed, cryptocurrency, is it allowed from what I've said? Brother Abdulhakim had given good descriptions. I won't go there, but basically, it's intangible, right? Intangible, right? The form of mal, right? Bitcoin, the same thing, is a variation of cryptocurrency, and there are many others, right? But let's go to blockchain technology. Why I like to talk about blockchain very briefly is because blockchain is like the process, digital tender, right? The digital tender technology, to record anything of value, whether it is currency or it is assets. If you like, it is an exchange, the exchange, commodity exchange, money exchange, OTC, So can blockchain simply just be an exchange? On the basis of that, on the basis of being an exchange, or a digital ledger technology, we do not see any problem with blockchain. However, I go back to what the Prophet said. Are you selling grapes to somebody that wants to eat it, or to somebody that produces alcohol? That then changes the dynamics to a very large extent, right? So blockchain to a very large extent, a lot of Islamic financial institutions around the world have accepted blockchain, to get a lot of things done. Is blockchain then used for digital money, which perhaps is not accepted in that particular jurisdiction? So if blockchain is used for that purpose, there's a problem. If blockchain is used for the purpose of digital ledger technology and all of that, to record things, anything at all, currency, assets, flow of commodities, flow of human beings, then there's no problem, right? These are the issues. I conclude. Sharia-wise, till today, to yesterday night, I don't know about today yet, scholars are yet to agree whether digital money is allowed or it's not allowed. Most scholars says it is not allowed, right? When I say I'm talking about Sharia scholars, most of them say it's not allowed because it has not met the conditions of this 4 red parts I have here. It has not met the conditions. Then they also argue that it has not protected wealth, to a very large extent. The other scholars that accept that, but it can be fine, they are saying that even the paper money at some point was rejected globally, when Nixon delinked money and gold. But over time, everybody started to accept paper money, Now, these remain the two schools of thought. Again, my own question is, just like I've done for Islamic finance, my personal argument is, how do we look at all of these conditions, and make digital money to fit into them, including the approvals of the authorities of the country. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.